Hive Mentality. Written and read by D.G. Chichester. You are the next generation of a proud tradition. Beekeeper General Octavius Plott spoke with a clipped, regimented air as he strode in front of his troops. These were the men and women who stood in ranks before him, clad in their crisp white bee suits, wide-brimmed bee hats, heavy mesh veils hanging down in front of their faces. They had paid $1,495 each for the privilege of learning the craft from a master, so they could be master of the 10,000 to 60,000 bees that would soon be buzzing in each of their take-home hives. Sweat ran down Mitch Nedrick's forehead. It was more than the heat, even though that was considerable inside the suit, with its elasticized ankles and wrists cutting off any airflow. It was also the expense, a big-ticket roll of the dice that had taken his bank account down into just the double digits. In both cases, the protective gear allowed for no relief. He had to suffer with the stinging sweat running down into his eyes. As in so many things since he'd lost his job, he had to live with it. The Beekeeper General held up one gloved hand where a single bee perched on the end of a finger. "You may be worried about being stung," said Plott. "I myself have been stung 627 times." The Beekeeper General visibly winced. 628. Each is a privilege in serving these fine creatures, in learning from them, in having them share their bounty with us. The job hunt had been leading nowhere, except for long days on the road and long waits in traffic on the road home for another sleepless night. It's in another slow crawl along the road that Mitch had found himself staring at the back of a battered Kia, drawn to the one bright spot to grace his day, a dazzling yellow bumper sticker. On the left side, an illustration of a smiling bee. On the right side, a drawing of a dripping honey pot. Bridging the two, the punny sentiment, "Be nice to people." For whatever reason, it stuck with Mitch. Another pun. And he detoured from home to make it to the Milne Public Library an hour before closing. Still time to use the public internet access to start learning about beekeeping. The basic hive configuration consists of 7 components, Beekeeper General explained, pointing out each. The hive stand, the bottom board, the hive body, the queen excluder, the honey super, the inner cover, and the hive cover. Let's open this up and meet some of our new friends, shall we? The fee for the course wasn't what drained Mitch's bank account. It was the insurance. Accidental death, high premiums, and a payoff to a shady broker to be sure the policy went in without a hitch. As a kid, Mitch remembers being stung by a bee and swelling up like a balloon, cutting off his ability to breathe. It was a warning story repeated every summer by concerned and loving parents. "You're very allergic, Mitch. You can't take a chance out there. Nature is not your friend. You have to be careful. Just one sting and you could die." I believe you will find that beekeeping provides many sweet rewards, Beekeeper General Plott said. There is, of course, the opportunity to make money from honey and beeswax. Another boon are the byproducts, or bee products, that come from these, such as natural remedies that can treat pain and ailments. Then there is the natural boost to the environment from having bees pollinating your garden and the nearby environment. And you cannot put too high a value on the sheer enjoyment, entertainment, even stress relief of simply watching these marvelous creatures at work and play. The reward for Mitch would be the fact he'd listed those loving parents of his as the beneficiaries on his big-ticket insurance policy. Losing him would hurt them in the short term, but the long term was what mattered. They'd be taken care of in spite of his inability to hold on to a job that mattered, in spite of the fact that he couldn't help pay for their needs. Just so long as it seemed like an accident. Mitch slowly raised the hat and veil off his head. He could breathe easily again. It was going to be okay. So close to the end, he didn't have to live with it anymore. He waved the hat and veil violently in the air. The bees that had risen from the hive when it had been opened took offense at his motions. So did his fellow students, who backed away, confused and worried. The bees swarmed in attack formation at Mitch. He squeezed his eyes shut as he felt the stings lance into his forehead, his neck, his cheeks. He felt the areas begin to expand, waiting for the allergic reaction to expand across the rest of him, cutting off his air. The end wouldn't be pleasant, but at least it would be over. At least it would. Mitch opened his eyes. The Beekeeper General stood in front of him, a stern but curious expression on his face. "You should really keep that on," he said, nodding at the hat and veil. "I thought I was allergic," Mitch gasped, but it was emotion, not anaphylaxis, that had him so choked up. Maybe you were, at one point, General Plot said. Physiology changes. What was once fatal now just hurts. And that passes. The beekeeper general waved his hands gently around Mitch's head and neck, dissipating the bees gathering in that space. He took the hat and veil from Mitch's hands and slid it back over Mitch's head. Let's serve. Let's learn. Let us share their bounty. Yes, said Mitch. Let's. Thanks for listening to Hive Mentality. Written and read by D.G. Chichester. Copyright 2020 by D.G. Chichester.